Millionaire returns early, catches sun with new Maid. The shocking truth will haunt you forever. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the grand mansion that looked all too serene. The air was thick with tension, a sense of something brewing just below the surface. A luxurious vehicle pulled into the driveway, tires crunching on the gravel like a heartbeat quickening in anticipation. Michael Hart, a man with an empire built on ambition and ruthless deals, had come home hours ahead of schedule. But it wasn't his wealth or influence that set the stage for calamity. It was the unsuspecting facade of normalcy that awaited him inside. He stepped inside, the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting in from the kitchen. Just moments ago, it should have been a comforting scent. But now it felt like an omen, wrapped in sugar and butter, as if to disguise the truth from his eyes. He walked through the lavish halls adorned with portraits of family members, their eyes seemingly following his every move. There was a cold draft that swept through the corridor, chilling him to the bone. Something was definitely off, and that S when he heard it. Laughter. Light, careless laughter echoing up the staircase. It sent shivers down his spine. The sound was unusually bright for such an otherwise quiet afternoon. Shifting gears into stealth, he tiptoed closer, his heart thudding in his chest. The laughter sounded remarkably familiar, yet out of place. He peeked around the corner, and that S when he saw them his son, Jamie, tangled up with the new maid in a way that sent shockwaves through his body. The maid was young, vibrant, with a mischievous smile that should have belonged in another life, another place, away from his home. What's going on here? Michael's voice cut through the air, heavy and accusing. The laughter froze in the room like a photograph from a happier time, and all eyes turned toward him. Jamie's face paled, his eyes wide with the horror of being caught. Michael could see the panic rising, the tightening grip of guilt wrapping around his son's throat like a noose. The silence became deafening, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Before we continue, I need to give you something important. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension didn't dissipate, it only multiplied. The maid's expression shifted from playful to terrified, her eyes darting between the two men, assessing the gravity of the moment. Michael felt the heat rise in his face, the impulse to lash out burning in his chest. Just then, the doorbell rang, a discordant interruption that shattered the thick atmosphere. Who could it be? His pulse raced again, uncertainty swirling in his gut. Could it be someone in the know? Someone who could spell disaster with a single word? Suddenly, all eyes were glued to the door as if it held the answers to everything unspoken. What more lay in store today? The layers of deception and secrecy were beginning to unravel, leaving an electric tension hanging in the air. What would Michael find if he opened that door? Why was laughter in his home now tangled in such a web of chaos? The truth felt dangerously close, yet just out of reach. The door swung open, revealing a man dressed crisply in a black suit, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Mr. Hart," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with urgency, "I need to speak with you." "It's important." Michael's brow furrowed. The attendant was a stranger, yet the intensity in his eyes sent alarm bells clanging in Michael's mind. Jamie's relief was palpable, but Michael couldn't shake the feeling that whatever this was, it wasn't over. "Can it wait?" Michael snapped, caught in a fierce battle between rage and the duty of a father. He was still reeling from the scene he'd just stumbled upon. "No, sir." "It cannot," the suited man replied, glancing nervously back toward Jamie and the maid, her face flushed and eyes wide. "I have information that could complicate things even further." Intrigued, Michael stepped aside and gestured for the man to come in. The maid hurriedly adjusted her clothing, as if hoping to regain some dignity, while Jamie remained frozen in a haze of guilt. Michael led the suited man to the study, shutting the door firmly behind them. The tension outside lingered, but this felt like an entirely different battlefield. "Talk," Michael commanded, his voice low, sharp as a knife. "There has been an incident, sir." "A catastrophic one," the man said, his composure faltering for a brief moment. "One of your properties there has been a theft. Sensitive information was taken, and it's not just material value at stake. It's your reputation." Michael clenched his jaw. "What kind of information?" The suited man hesitated, eyes darting to the door as if considering fleeing. "Board members, they're involved," he finally said, his voice nearly a whisper. "It appears someone is trying to shake your foundation from the inside." His heart sank. The implications were dire. Not only was someone using his trusted inner circle against him, but he didn't even know who to trust anymore. His empire, meticulously built, was on the brink of disaster, and he hadn't even dealt with the chaos unfolding at home. "I want names. I want evidence," Michael demanded, his mind racing. The man nodded slowly, taking a breath. "I have documents. Correspondence that ties them to unusual transactions. But—" he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There's more. The maid, the one you found." His eyes flicked to the door again, fearful of being overheard. "I believe she's involved. There are connections to the theft." Michael's heart dropped. He turned sharply toward the door, imagining Jamie's innocence fading. What if the laughter and the carefree moments held darker secrets? The suited man continued, "If you don't act quickly, the fallout could be catastrophic. You need to find out who else is in on this. Time is running out." Michael steadied his breath, the tension pulling tight in his chest. "What do you suggest?" "Find the source, expose them all before they can move against you. Trust no one, not even your family." As those words sank in, a sense of dread curled in Michael's gut. How deep did this treachery run? He stepped out into the hallway, the sound of muffled voices signaling Jamie's rising panic. He caught a glimpse of the maid. The mere thought of betrayal twisted his insides. "Stay here," he commanded the suited man, moving toward the living room where Jamie now stood, eyes pleading. "I didn't mean to, Dad. It was just a stupid game," Jamie blurted out, desperation leaking into every word. "Games? You think this is a game?" Michael hissed, his fury boiling. Just then, the maid slipped past Michael, her face pale, an apparition of guilt. "Mr. Hart, I can explain now." "Not now." Michael's voice erupted. The wealth of chaos began to unfold, threads of deception wrapping tighter around them. And then the doorbell rang again, a cruel reminder that there were outside forces at play. "What now?" Michael gasped, his breath hitching. As Jamie and the maid exchanged alarmed looks, Michael couldn't help but wonder who now stood on the other side of that door, and what new secrets would they reveal. Michael's pulse quickened, a drumbeat of anxiety echoing in his ears. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Panic flickered in Jamie's eyes, blending with confusion as he searched for the right words, but they failed him. The maid remained frozen, her natural composure shattered. "I swear, Mr. Hart, if you just let me explain." "Shut up," he barked, turning to the door. He couldn't waste time on excuses when betrayal lingered in the shadows. Whoever stood outside might hold the key to the chaos unraveling his life. With a firm grip, he yanked the door open, the hinges creaking in protest. The figure on the other side was a tall man in a leather jacket, his face masked by dark sunglasses that obscured any trace of emotion. "Who are you?" Michael demanded. The man removed his glasses, and something flickering in his eyes set Michael on edge. "Let's just say I'm here to help for a price," the stranger said, an unsettling grin spreading across his lips. Michael stepped back, instinct screaming. What game was this? "I don't have time for games. State your business or get out." "Fine. You've got a problem," the man said, glancing over Michael's shoulder, his gaze lingering on Jamie and the maid. "And I know how to fix it." "Stop," Michael commanded, a shudder rippling through him. "Who sent you?" "That's not important. What is important is what's at stake here." The stranger leaned in, lowering his voice. "Trust me, it's bigger than you think. You're being set up." A chill slithered down Michael's spine. The idea of being played like a pawn sent fresh waves of anger coursing through him. You better spit it out before I lose my mind. The man straightened, sensing Michael's intensity. I have evidence proof that your board members aren't just involved. They're the ones behind the theft. Jim Braddock is the ringleader. Michael blinked, disbelief clawing at his gut. Jim? One of his oldest allies? A man he trusted with his life and business? You're lying, he half-heartedly muttered, but the uncertainty crept in like frost. Am I? The stranger replied, his tone ice-cold. I can show you, but we need to move fast. I'm not the only one who knows. If they catch wind of my intentions enough. Michael shouted, cutting him off. He turned back to Jamie, who was listening wide-eyed, and the maid, whose face had blanched. What do you know about this? It's not what you think. Jamie's voice trembled, fear twisting his features. I was just stop. Michael felt cornered, like a lion encaged. You're playing games while I'm trying to save this family. You don't understand, the maid interjected, moving closer to him. I swear I wasn't part of this until what? Michael snapped, rage boiling beneath the surface. Until what? Until the text from Jim. He told me to keep you distracted. He said it was just a game. Her words burst forth in a frantic rush. Distracted? Michael's heart raced. Everything started to click into place. And you went along with it? The maid shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. I didn't know, I thought it was harmless fun. Michael turned slowly back to the stranger, the weight of everything threatening to crush him. What do you want? Your trust for starters. But you need to act, and you need to act now. The urgency in his tone settled like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Time felt as if it was slipping away as Michael registered the consequences of hesitating. Are you in or out? The stranger challenged, his eyes narrowing. Michael opened his mouth, ready to respond, when the house was suddenly plunged into darkness. Panic rippled through everyone as lights flickered out, the oppressive silence only interrupted by the distant sound of thunder rumbling ominously. What the hell? Jamie shouted, panic in his voice. The stranger lunged forward, grabbing Michael's arm. We've got company. They're here. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Michael's veins. The plush safety of his home had turned into a trap. His heart raced, pounding against his chest like a war drum. Would he have the strength to face what was converging on them? Then, a distant crash echoed from the back of the house, shattering the silence and shrouding the world in uncertainty once more. Michael's world was unraveling. How could he protect his family and himself when shadows danced around every corner? As footsteps echoed down the darkened hallway, Michael wasted no time. We need to find out who's really behind this. Before it's too late. The darkness wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. Michael could feel the tension crackling in the air, each breath a ragged gasp. Jamie stood rigid beside him, his eyes wide and frantic, searching the opaque shadows for any sign of movement. The maid clutched the wall, her breath shallow and fast, panic illuminating her features. Michael squeezed the stranger's arm, urging him to focus. What now? We move, the man replied, his voice low and urgent. We can't stay here. They'll come looking for you, especially if they think you're onto them. As if on cue, the echoes of footsteps grew louder, thudding ominously against the hardwood floor. Michael's heart thudded painfully in rhythm with those steps. There was no room for doubt now. The game had shifted from a twisted puzzle to a life-or-death situation. Back door, Michael whispered, his mind racing. He had to protect his family. He had to face the truth. He could no longer look away from the darkness swirling around him, threatening to consume everything he cherished. With a nod, they slipped silently through the dark halls, hearts pounding, adrenaline coursing. As they approached the rear entrance, Michael caught a glimpse of the moonlight spilling through a small window, illuminating the panic-stricken faces of Jamie and the maid. The stranger glanced back, urgency etched on his face. If we don't get out now, we won't get out at all. They reached the door, its wood cool against Michael's palm. He hesitated for just a moment, steeling himself for whatever lay outside. Stay close, he ordered, pushing the door wide open. A cold gust of wind rushed in, and Michael squinted into the night, searching for any sign of the danger that lurked close by. There was no time to waste. The gravel crunched under their feet as they stepped out, but they barely made it 2 paces before the sound of breaking glass shattered the silence behind them. What was that? Jamie stammered, his eyes darting back toward the house. Run! Michael shouted, his instincts kicking in as he pulled Jamie and the maid along. They sprinted down the pathway, dread pooling in Michael's stomach. The shadows felt alive, twisting and curling like serpents ready to strike. Disbelief clawed at him. Could Jim really be at the center of all this? Why would his trusted friend turn on him? Then came a voice, piercing through the night with a familiar tone that sent chills racing down Michael's spine. Michael, you can't escape this. He turned in horror to see Jim standing just beyond the gate, illuminated by the glow of a street lamp, a smug expression plastered across his face. The betrayal hit like a tidal wave, crashing over him. How had it come to this? Friends turned enemies in the blink of an eye. Jim! Michael shouted, backing away, the dark shock settling in his chest. What do you want? Don't act surprised, Jim sneered, taking a step forward. You think you're untouchable? You brought this upon yourself. Before Michael could respond, the stranger abruptly shoved him aside, stepping between him and Jim. This ends now. Michael's pulse raced. Here was the man who claimed to have evidence, but would he truly be an ally or just another piece in this deadly game? The air crackled with tension, a storm brewing both inside and out. What is it gonna be, Michael? You're running out of options, Jim taunted, fingers tapping against the cold steel of something hidden in his jacket. Glancing at the stranger, Michael felt an unexpected surge of hope. Show me the evidence, he commanded, feeling the weight of fate resting heavily upon him. The stranger nodded, urgency flashing in his eyes. This is about to get much worse, Michael eyed Jim, fear bubbling in his chest. What does he mean worse? What else is happening? As questions swirled, thunder rumbled overhead, drowning out Michael's thoughts. With the unknown standing right in front of him, what would they unveil next? Who could he really trust as the walls began to close in? The air felt thicker now, saturated with tension as the distant roll of thunder echoed overhead. Michael's heart raced as he tried to decipher the chaotic scene unfolding in front of him. Jim's smug expression shifted slightly, revealing something darker underneath. The shadows danced around them, concealing more than just danger. They hid unspeakable truths. Jim chuckled, the sound low and menacing. Think you can just walk away? This is just the beginning. You've meddled too much. He shifted his weight, an ominous gesture that seemed to hint at something lethal hidden away. Enough games, Jim. Michael fired back, desperation lighting the fire in his chest. What do you want? Why, Michael? That's the question, isn't it? This isn't just about you anymore. You've dragged your little family into this mess, and they'll pay the price if you don't comply. Jim's eyes glinted with malice. Do you hear that? It's the sound of your own making, the stranger interjected, voice steady but fierce. Don't you see? You're pushing him to the edge. As if on cue, the night shattered with a sudden burst of noise, shouting and doors slamming, footsteps echoing in the dark. Michael's breath tightened in his throat as fear seeped through him. They didn't have much time. Michael, he's lying, the stranger hissed under his breath, urgency cracking his voice. You have to trust me. If he gets his way, it won't just be your life on the line. They're coming for everyone. We need to go now. Go where? Michael spat, an edge of panic creeping into his tone. The world felt like it was collapsing around him, and every decision had the weight of a life on its shoulders. You need to tell me what's really happening. Everything changes tonight, Jim sneered, taking another step forward. You'll find out soon enough. Just don't say I didn't warn you, he added, pulling his jacket aside just enough to reveal a shiny surface glimmering under the street lamp. Before Michael could process the threat, the street exploded with garish lights and shouts, a convoy of vehicles pulling into view. What the hell? Jamie whispered, eyes wide in terror, his gaze bouncing between Jim and the stranger. Who are they? This isn't what you think. Just trust me, Michael shouted, gripping Jamie tightly. That's our chance. Back this way. The stranger gestured towards a narrow alley that branched off the main path. It leads to the docks. We can't go back, it's too late. With one last glance at Jim's twisted face, Michael tugged Jamie and the maid towards the alley. They stumbled into darkness, heartbeats thundering in their ears. Cold air rushed past them, almost suffocating as they veered through the tight space. Michael felt the walls close around them, but he pressed on, needing to escape whatever lay waiting behind him. "Michael," the maid cried, stumbling behind them. "What if we can't think about that? Keep running." They turned a sharp corner, the sounds of chaos fading into the distance, replaced by the low rush of water. The docks loomed ahead, dimly lit but promising freedom. In the distance, a boat bobbed gently against the pier, engines rumbling. But in the stillness of that moment, another voice, this one sharp and cold, caught Michael's ear. "Going somewhere?" It sliced through the air, pulling him to a halt. "Damn it!" The stranger cursed, pulling Michael back just as a figure stepped into the shadows, a gun gleaming ominously in the dim light. As questions rolled through Michael's mind like a storm, he found himself caught between the threat of violence and the urge to flee. Could they really escape this? The truth lingered just beyond reach, tantalizing and terrifying, but the moment of clarity slipped away as the unknown voice spoke again. "You can't run from what you've unleashed. You want to escape this." Now the question loomed larger than ever. Who were the real enemies in this twisted game? The waters rose behind them, but the answer seemed trapped in darkness. The tension in the air was palpable, thick like fog clinging to their skin. Michael felt his pulse in his ears, drumming with fear. The figure before them was tall, silhouetted against the trembling light of the distant street lamps, a predator in the night. The gun gleamed menacingly, its muzzle seeming to breathe with malice. "Get down!" the stranger shouted, pushing Michael and Jamie to the ground just as a shot rang out. Michael's heart sank as he hit the pavement, the impact rattling his bones. The bullet whizzed past, barely missing them, and splattered ominously against the wall behind them. "Run!" the stranger yelled, shoving Michael toward the way they had come. But asting down the alley, Michael froze. The shadows felt alive, creeping into his thoughts, barricading him in fear. Another shout echoed, this time from the figures in the cars that had pulled up. They were moving closer, chasing the ghosts of their promises. Jim's laughter floated through the chaos like a haunting echo. "You're already lost, Michael. No one escapes the web once they're caught." Michael's breath hitched. "We can't keep running," he said, desperation pouring from his voice. Jamie trembled beside him, his eyes wide and terrified, reflecting the orange glow of the streetlights. "Michael, the docks. The boat?" Jamie whispered, grabbing his sleeve. "That's our only chance. Trust him," the stranger added, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. "You can't look back. We need to reach that boat." With renewed urgency, they dashed down the alley. Each footstep felt like a countdown, echoing against the walls of their narrow escape route. The shouts grew louder, rendering their path the stage for a frantic chase. A raw, unsettling thrill coursed through Michael's veins. They were trapped, but they refused to give in. As they neared the end of the alley, Michael stole a glance back, his instincts screaming at him to be alert. Glimpses of figures emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn, and Michael's stomach dropped. "Faster!" he shouted, lunging forward just as more gunfire erupted behind them. The sound was deafening, each shot a grim reminder of what was at stake. The distant waves of the docks beckoned, promising safety but also fraught with uncertainty. They stumbled onto the dock, breathless and frantic. The boat bobbed merrily, the engine roaring, impatient and alive. "Get on!" the stranger shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of the water. "Hurry! Where are you going?" Jamie asked, panic etching his features. "Cover," Michael replied, shoving Jamie onto the boat before glancing back at the alley. The figures were closing in. He could see their shapes moving, silhouettes embodying all the threats that loomed large in his mind. Just as Michael leaped onto the boat, the stranger turned, gun raised. "Hold them back," he shouted, his voice carrying a weight of authority. A sudden crack of gunfire pierced the air, causing Michael to flinch, heart in his throat. A flash of chaos erupted. Bullets fired, ricocheting off the water and metal as Michael's instincts kicked in. They couldn't just leave him. But the boat's engine roared more intensely, the driver urging them to escape. "Michael, let us go," Jamie screamed as the boat rocked beneath them, the crew's faces taut with urgency. As they pulled away from the dock, Michael glanced back, and what he saw froze him in place. The stranger was back, firing into the night, but Jim's men were advancing. The odds were insurmountable. What had they truly unleashed? "Michael, go!" Jamie shouted again, and this time he felt the weight of everything he cared about, that fiery love, that stark desperation crash over him like a tidal wave. With a desperate yank, he turned away, clinging to the boat like a lifeline. They surged into the dark waters, the city lights bleeding away behind them, leaving shadows in their wake, but the question hung heavy in the air. What had they truly escaped from? The darkness behind them was just the beginning, and now there was no telling what lay ahead. The boat sliced through the choppy waters, each wave crashing against the hull, sending a shiver up Michael's spine. Despite the distance they had put between themselves and the chaos on the dock, the weight of that night chased them like a relentless shadow. Breathless, he turned to Jamie, who was gripping the edge of the boat as if it were the only thing keeping him afloat. Did we lose them?" Jamie gasped, his face pale under the dim lights of the vessel. "I don't know," Michael replied, throat dry. The adrenaline still coursed through him, making his heart race. The image of the stranger, standing defiantly against their pursuers, burned in his mind. "Who is that guy?" Jamie asked, peering into the dark. "He just left us?" "He saved us. That's what matters," Michael shot back, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "But what did he mean by cover?" Suddenly, the driver of the boat, a grizzled man with salt and pepper hair, cut the engine, plunging them into an eerie silence, the sound of the water lapping at the sides of the vessel somehow more menacing than the noise of gunfire. "What are you doing?" Jamie demanded, the terror bleeding back into his voice. "Listen," the man said, straining to hear. They sat in darkness, the city fading away behind them, replaced by the pitch of night and a myriad of stars that seemed indifferent to their plight. They barely drew breath before a low thrum of a motor reached their ears, becoming louder in an instant. A boat was approaching. Michael's stomach churned. Were they coming for him? He had thought the worst was over, but now dread filled the air like smoke. "It could be the cops," the driver whispered, eyeing the shadows. But Michael knew better. The fear that tickled the back of his mind was familiar. It felt like the grip of Jim's men, like a noose tightening around them. "Stay down," Michael said, pulling Jamie down beside him. His heart pounded loud enough to drown out the sound of the approaching craft, and his mind raced through their dwindling options. As the other boat came into view, its bright headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating their vessel. Figures stood on board, etched in the stark light, fierce and unyielding. Michael squinted, and his blood ran cold when he recognized one of the faces, one wielding a gun and wearing a wicked grin. "Michael," Jamie whispered, wide-eyed. "What do we do?" "Stay quiet. Don't let them see us," Michael breathed, feeling his way down the side of the boat to hide in the shadow of its frame. He could hear the laughter, or was it a cackle, as the figures drew closer, their sounds dangerously familiar. The other boat came to a halt alongside theirs. Heavy boots slapped against metal, piercing the tension in the air. "They're out here somewhere. I want them found." Jim's voice boomed across the water, each word laced with malice, echoing uniquely in the hollow night. Michael's heart raced as he pressed closer against the cool metal, the fear of discovery gripping him like a vice. He caught Jamie's gaze, horror and uncertainty rolled in his wide, frightened eyes. "Did you hear that?" "He's hunting us," Jamie whispered in panic. "I want to let them take us," Michael whispered back. "We need a plan." Just as he formulated a desperate idea to dive into the water and swim for it, a spotlight swung toward them, casting a blinding white beam that illuminated the truth hiding in shadows. "Over there!" Jim shouted, and Michael's blood turned to ice. The moment Michael feared finally came crashing down. They had no time to think, no time to breathe. Run! He shouted, grabbing Jamie's arm. But before they could move, everything erupted into chaos as bullets rang out and the night erupted into screams. As Michael and Jamie bolted towards the other end of the boat, the weight of what they were truly up against crashed down on them, a web they had seemingly entered, and now the jaws were closing in. But just as they reached the end of the vessel, the engine roared back to life behind them. What had they stirred awake? Michael, what is going on? Jamie yelled, horror. Reflecting the truth, not even the water could protect them now. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the darkness was no longer just behind them. It was everywhere and closing in fast. The bullets sang through the air, a harsh chorus that shattered the night. Michael didn't stop to think. He yanked Jamie to his feet, adrenaline fueling their frantic escape. They stumbled over the slick deck, eyes wide with terror, hearts racing in unison. Where do we go? Jamie cried, panic slicing through his voice. The spotlight continued to sweep across the boat, searching for them, illuminating the chaos they had narrowly escaped again and again. Michael sensed it. They had run before, and it hadn't always ended well. Anywhere but here, Michael shouted, dragging Jamie toward the bow. The boat was a maze of shadows, and every noise, scraping metal, splashing water, felt like a death knell. Their only glimmer of hope flickered and grew dimmer with every step. Behind them, laughter mixed with the echo of Jim's voice. You think you can run forever, Michael? You're mine. The anger in Jim's tone ignited something in Michael's chest. He hated this feeling of being hunted, of being prey. Breathless, he surveyed their options. The shoreline was a distant whisper against the horizon, and for a fleeting second, doubt washed over him. Could they even make it? The driver, a man who looked like he had seen his share of trouble, barked orders. Grab those life vests. Get ready to jump when I say. Jamie's eyes darted around. Jump? Are you crazy? They'll shoot us. It's either that or sit here and wait for them, Michael said. Fear clawed at his insides, and a sudden resolve surged. He couldn't let despair take them. Not now. The rumble of motors filled the air again, more boats converging on their location. They were surrounded. No! The driver shouted, and without hesitation, he tossed life vests toward them. Michael caught one and quickly helped Jamie into the other. The next second stretched, everything feeling like molasses. The sound of engines grew louder, drowning out Michael's frantic heartbeat. He seized Jamie's hand, and together they edged closer to the side of the boat. Michael's breath caught as a flash of movement broke the surface, dark shapes swimming toward them. Were they fish? No. Too big. Shadows twisted just beneath the surface, edging closer with every heartbeat. Panic fused into clarity. Something else was out there, besides just Jim and his men. Michael. Jamie's voice broke through the murky fog of fear. What do we do? We can't swim with them out there. Trust me, Michael whispered, squeezing Jamie's hand tighter. We jump into the water when I say go. Focus on swimming. The oncoming boats were now mere specks in the distance, their lights flickering. The danger was real, but they had to move. The driver turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life. Ready? He yelled, voice a mix of urgency and determination. Yes! They yelled back in unison. Go! The instant the words spilled from the driver's lips, they leapt. Cold water enveloped them, pulling them down like a stone, shrouding their cries in silence. They surfaced gasping. The night air was sharp, the world spinning. Michael closed his eyes momentarily, steeling himself. This was survival, and they had to push forward, but then a deep echoing rumble vibrated through the water. Michael's heart raced again, but this time it was not fear alone, it was terror. Something massive lurked beneath, closing in with swift currents, and he felt a sudden urge that shot him back to reality. Swim! He yelled, kicking out, the urge to just sink and allow the waves to carry him under, gnawing at his resolve. Jamie struggled beside him, fighting against the current. As they swam furiously, Michael sensed it, something's eyes boring into his back, watching them. Was it Jim, or something worse lurking beneath the surface? Ahead, lights of the shore sparkled like stars, misguiding yet inviting. But those weren't just lights, the silhouettes of the figures on the shoreline reflected back at them. "Michael, we need to go back," Jamie cried, terror cracking his resolve. "What if they see us? That's our only shot." Michael growled, pushing Jamie onward. "Just keep swimming." But as they reached out toward the shore, the unmistakable sound of laughter echoed over the water, twisting into something more sinister. Then Michael realized they weren't just being hunted, they were bait for something far darker, and as the monsters lingered, lurking beneath, silence wrapped around them like a cold embrace. What awaited them on the shore? All Michael knew now was that nothing would ever be the same again. The laughter grew louder, bouncing off the water like twisted music. It sent a chill racing down Michael's spine. He pushed harder, urging Jamie to match his pace, but every stroke felt heavier, like they were swimming through lead. "Keep going." Michael's voice was a roar in the night, but internally, panic clawed at him. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to find Jim's men on their heels. Instead, that dark shadow beneath the surface pulsed, lurking closer. Something was out for blood, and it wasn't just the men hunting them. The shoreline loomed closer, but danger swirled around them like a noxious fog. It was survival against two relentless adversaries, Jim and whatever was beneath the water. "Michael, I can't," Jamie gasped, the breath knocked from him as waves crashed against his chest. Exhaustion painted Jamie's face, fear making his skin pale under the moonlight. "Just a little further. We're almost there," Michael pleaded, his heart hammering against his ribs. As they swam, shapes melded into the darkness ahead. The silhouettes they thought were safety morphed into figures, men with weapons silhouetted against the beach's faint glow. They were armed, their stances ready, waiting for prey. Each shout from the shore sent new shivers through Michael, stirring trepidation within him. "Turn back!" Jamie screamed, his eyes wide with terror. "No," Michael countered, determination flooding him. "We can't. They'll kill us for sure." The rumble beneath them pulsated again. It was deeper now, more pronounced, an ominous reminder that they were not alone in these waters. Michael felt the electric connection knot in his stomach. A sudden splash shattered the surface nearby. The water exploded with violent turbulence, and Michael instinctively grabbed Jamie's arm, pulling him just under the water as something massive surged past, twirling between them and the shore. "What the hell was that?" Jamie gasped, surfacing briefly before splashing back down. Michael tried to focus. It could have been a fish, a massive fish, but the way it broke the surface, the shadow that followed, told him otherwise. "Come on. We need to swim to the right," Michael shouted, turning away from those figures on the beach. Every muscle burned, every instinct screamed that danger lurked close, but there was no choice. They needed to escape. As they veered right, a chorus of jeers erupted from the beach. "Look! They're swimming away!" One shouted, laughter lacing his taunts. Another voice chimed in, cold and taunting, "Get 'em, boys!" Adrenaline surged through Michael. "They're coming!" He kicked harder, desperation turning into raw determination. The lights on the shore faded. The sounds of laughter drowned in the howling wind, replaced by the rush of the water. "We can't let them catch us," Jamie cried, panic spiking. "What if we just don't stop?" Michael interrupted, urgency coursing through his veins. They were mere feet from reaching a rocky outcrop concealed in darkness, the wild coast that could lead them to safety or doom. But as Michael turned, a loud splash erupted again behind them, a ripple that sent waves crashing. Something was drawing near, slicing through the water with unearthly speed. Panic gripped Michael's chest. "Swim faster." As they reached the rocks, Michael felt something swirl beneath them, the water churning wildly. He barely launched himself onto dry land, dragging Jamie behind him. But before they could catch their breath, a grotesque creature emerged from the water, slick and terrifying, its eyes glinting in the moonlight. It rose higher, revealing razor-sharp teeth and a body that seemed to ripple with scale-like armor. "What is that?" Jamie whispered, dread coursing through him as they scrambled back. "Something worse than Jim," Michael replied, heart racing. That horrifying laugh echoed once more, this time blending with another, more menacing growl. As the creature lunged toward them, Michael realized their leap to safety may have put them directly in the path of a monster they had never anticipated. What fate awaited them as the shadows merged? With the night, a choice lingering just out of reach? And as the ground trembled beneath them, Michael knew one truth for certain: they had only just begun to scratch the surface of this nightmare. Everything spiraled out of control as Michael and Jamie braced themselves against the jagged rocks, hearts pounding as the monstrous figure loomed closer. Fear gripped them like a vice. Survival instincts kicked in. Whatever Jim had unleashed was now a matter of life and death again. The creature's eyes glimmered, reflecting an unsettling hunger. It prowled closer, its massive jaws parting to reveal rows of sharp, glistening teeth. The electricity in the air crackled with unspoken horrors. Michael glanced at Jamie, whose eyes were wide with terror, and he felt a surge of protectiveness pulse through him. "Back! Move!" Michael shouted, grasping Jamie's arm and pulling him away from the edge. They scrambled over the rocks, desperate to create distance from the menacing figure looming in the dark water. The echoes of Jim's laughter rang in Michael's ears, mingling with the primal growl of the creature behind them. "Where do we go?" Jamie gasped, adrenaline firing through him. "What if it follows us? It won't catch us if we keep moving." "We could use the terrain," Michael said, determined to find some kind of refuge. They darted away, weaving through the maze of rocks, the shadows dancing menacingly around them. But the creature wasn't too far behind. Michael could hear the splash of water as it closed in, its growls vibrating ominously in the air. Each thud of its steps echoed through the uneven landscape, resonating like a war drum. "Michael," Jamie's voice trembled. "What if we can't get away?" The desperation in Jamie's voice struck a chord deep within him. "We will get away. We have to help each other." His heart raced, a mix of fear and the will to protect overwhelming him. "We just need to find a way out." Just then, they stumbled upon a narrow cave entrance. Given the imminent danger, it seemed like their only option. "In there," Michael urged, motioning toward the darkness. He pulled Jamie inside, holding his breath against the damp and chilling air. They pressed against the rock wall, hoping that the darkness would afford them a moment's reprieve. Clinging to each other, they could hear the creature bellow angrily, sniffing out their scent. Michael held his breath, fearing the worst, a collision with death itself, but then a faint light flickered in the cave, growing stronger with every heartbeat. "What is that?" Jamie whispered, a hint of wonder cutting through the terror. "I don't know," Michael replied. "But we need to keep moving." As they pushed deeper into the cave, the light revealed an underground river sparkling and rushing past, its currents beckoning them toward freedom. "There!" Jamie exclaimed, pointing at a small wooden boat moored to the bank. "Let us go," Michael urged, his panic racing anew as he could still hear the creature thrashing outside. They leapt into the boat just as the growls transformed into furious roars, shaking the cave. Michael grabbed the oars, urgency igniting his movements. "Hold on," he shouted, heaving the boat into the fast-moving water. The river surged ahead, pulling them into the depths of the earth. Michael felt the adrenaline course through him as they glided through the dark tunnel. The rough stone walls loomed like angry giants, but they were moving away from the threat. They had a chance. "Are we going to make it?" Jamie asked, his voice a mix of hope and fear. "Yes, we can do this," Michael replied, his conviction hardening. The river widened, and eventually bursts of light began to penetrate the darkness, illuminating their path toward freedom. But just as they neared the mouth of the cave, a loud rumble rocked through the air. Michael cast a glance back, panic surging. "It's coming," he yelled, the monstrous shadow edging into view once more. Water crashed against the rock as it lunged for them. With an explosion of energy, Michael rowed desperately, heart racing faster than it had in his life. The creature's slick body lunged toward them, claws outstretched. Water erupted in splashes, and then bam. A collision of fury and flesh sent the boat spinning. Michael clamped down on Jamie, gripping the edge as they spun. "Hold on," he shouted, fighting against the chaos. Everything felt surreal. Their world was a whirlpool of fear and determination, but still they had made it. They had lived to tell this story. As the rushing water guided them out into the open night, Michael turned to Jamie, their breaths mingling in the cool air. "We did it." The dawn was breaking, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a glimmer of hope dawning alongside them. But just as their spirits began to soar anew, an ominous shadow loomed on the horizon. Jim's men, trailing close behind, engines roaring. And amidst the chaos, Michael saw something else, a flicker of light, hope shining brighter. "Let us get ashore before they catch up," Michael commanded, steeling himself against the threat. They motored toward the shoreline, hope igniting anew as their lifeline. With each stroke, they fought against the tide of despair. Once the boat touched land, Michael and Jamie leapt out, sprinting toward the trees, utilitarian instincts sharpening as they slipped under the dense cover of foliage. The laughter and chaos faded into the distance. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. They moved through the forest, pulse racing. Everything they had fought for rested upon this moment. Their survival hung in the balance, the need for safety burning bright. They had to unravel the web of betrayal and shed light on the darkness that chased them. They were stronger together. Eventually, as they rested against a tree, catching their breaths in misery and triumph, Jamie looked up at Michael, wide-eyed. "What do we do now?" Michael took a deep, steadying breath, his heart swelling with resolve. "Now we fight back. We find the truth behind all this. We show them they can't play us like pawns anymore." He clenched his fist, feeling unyielding strength flood through him, and just as the sun began to rise, illuminating the horizon, Michael knew that this was only the beginning of their fight, a fight for their family, for their dignity, and ultimately, their lives. It wasn't about the creature lurking in the darkness or the traitors in the shadows. This was about Michael and Jamie, rewriting their fate and reclaiming their power. It was their turn to take charge, and this time, they wouldn't back down. And in that moment of determination, as they looked toward the rising sun, Michael felt the spark of hope igniting within them once more. They were alive. And they would never run again. Finally, to you, our valued viewers, if you want to stay riveted to these intense stories as they unfold, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't miss out on the next chapter in our wild journey. And make sure to smash that like button to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what comes next. Your voice matters. Also, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The road ahead is treacherous, and we want you to be with us every step of the way. Join the fight.